Good morning and welcome to Morning Movie News. Now yesterday, Sony was like, whoa, everyone's talking about Marvel versus DC cinematic universes, but we have a horse in this race too. We just haven't built it yet. And that, what they're talking about, is their Spider-Man cinematic universe. Yes, they are continuing to insist that this is doable, and I guess on paper, there is an argument that Sony could do this. They could build a Spider-Man cinematic universe, because they do, at the Marvel Comics, there are several Spider-Man titles. There's not just Spider-Man, he usually has several books. There's like a team-up book, there's also a Scarlet Spider book, there's a Venom book, it's getting canceled actually. There have been several Spider-Girl books, which have all been canceled. Oh, Sony, are you seeing a pattern here? But also, you know, right now there's a Morbius the Living Vampire. He's one of Spider-Man's villains, I think they're trying to turn him into an anti-hero. I don't read that book. I do read the Superior Foes of Spider-Man, which is kind of like following some low-rent Spider-Man villains, almost like a real-world villain-style kind of show, comic book, and that's pretty good. That's solid. I mean, I really only enjoy the main Spider-Man title, but also I do love Miles Morales over in the Ultimate Universe, and so I, like a lot of people, am really excited about the potential of not only Miles moving into the 616, which is comic book lingo for the main Marvel line, but also maybe him coming into the films. I think that would be very exciting. But I think that I don't see a lot of room for expansion beyond just making good Spider-Man movies. And I think that Sony has to perfect that first before they decide to spin it off into films. I mean, I think there's no Iron Man, I don't think they have an Iron Man level success or obviously a Dark Knight level success, which kind of warranted, like, okay, well, this is so hot and fans like it so much, we're doing such a good job, let's spin it out and explore it. I think that people are still like, Sony, I don't think you got it right quite yet. Keep trying, but you're in the right direction finally, I think. Because I do like these Andrew Garfield movies. I think they're very good. But at the same time, I just don't think there's enough here to have a spin-off universe. Especially because Spider-Man's characters are so similar to him. You know, I think that Scarlet Spider, Spider-Woman, Spider-Girl, these are all just, and even Venom, they're all just variations of Spider-Man. So I think that, you know, this isn't like you have different kinds of heroes with different power sets like you have in Marvel and DC. So I think that Sony's just really dreaming here, and I don't think this is going to work for them, and I think they should just, as I said, focus on making really good Spider-Man movies and taking risks there, because this isn't even really a risk. I think it's almost doomed to failure, and I think that, as I said, a number of these comics have been canceled, and also you'll notice in every cinematic universe, there's really about one character that propels the whole thing. It's Iron Man for Marvel, and it's Batman for DC, and we'll get into Batman more in a minute. But, so as you can see, I think Spider-Man is really the main driving force there, and I just don't even see any secondary characters that you could spin off into films. I just don't see it. But I'm curious to what you guys think. Do you want some of what Sony is smoking, or do you think they are just absolutely crazy? All right, is your spider sense going off? This is a bad idea. All right, so that's the first story of the day. The second story of the day that some of you pointed out to me, because it was kind of a big headline in the fan community, was that Warner Brothers, whose lawyers have been very busy recently, you might have heard the recent story that they have copyrighted Nightwing for merchandising purposes, to make purchases. There's a Freudian slip, for merchandising purposes, to make sure that nobody else can use Nightwing and try and apparently profit off of their upcoming film, where Nightwing will be making an appearance. And further proof of a Batman-centric Man of Steel sequel is that they have copyrighted a bunch of titles for the film. Now it's going to have a subtitle. It's going to be Man of Steel with a subtitle. And so these are the ones that they've copyrighted. There is, all right, or registered. There's Battle the Night with a K, Beyond Darkness, Black of Night, again with a K, Man of Steel Darkness Falls, Night Falls with a K. You're seeing a trend here. Shadow of the Night, The Blackest Hour, and The Darkness Within. Now, obviously, okay, you're seeing all the K trend. You know that it's not just the night, but the night, the Dark Knight. But also, I think they should have also trademarked Man of Steel. We don't have any faith in Superman, because that's basically what they're saying here. They're trying so hard to be like, hey, wink, wink, nod, nudge, nudge. Batman's in this movie, and Nightwing too. It's like you couldn't even build out Superman supporting cast as a tease. I mean, I remember after the movie came out, Man of Steel, there was a rumor going around that Supergirl was going to show up in the sequel, and everyone got super excited, and everyone's excited about Lex Luthor. I think like many fans. I felt there was a glimmer of hope in Man of Steel. Wasn't a perfect movie by far, in my opinion. I know some people really liked it, but I think people are very divided on it. All right, I think that the pro half is very loud and has a lot of zest. I think we'll put a positive spin on it, and I think that's great. I'm glad there's fan interest, and I think even the negative side is interested in seeing this do better, because I think everybody can agree there were good elements here. But I think it really needs a second movie to find its footing, because there are problems, and I think that it needs to be fleshed out. He just started working at the Daily Planet, and I think there's a lot more to go. So I think bringing in Batman now, and there's rumors of it's going to largely be, a Justice League movie to some degree. Like there's rumors of a Flash cameo, a Wonder Woman cameo, maybe still even Supergirl. Everyone's not sure because that pod on his ship was open. Are they just going to forget about that? And Lex is I think Lex was actually confirmed to be in there. That's what Zack Snyder kind of said at that webcast for the Blu-ray. But again, as you can see, it's going to be a Batman-centric title, and Batman is going to be the big selling point. And you also might have seen there was a story that a Warner Brothers producer who's working on the film, legitimately a producer on Man of Steel 2, tweeted that this Batman will be like a reclusive guy in his cave who's hiding out, kind of like semi-Batman Beyond, and he sends out robots to help him. Or perhaps Nightwing. There's also the rumor that Nightwing maybe has broken off from Batman. But I don't know if Batman's going to be in the cave, which I think is a good excuse not to put Ben Affleck in the mask, which might be a good idea. I don't know how Ben Affleck's going to look in that mask. But giving it a very Batman Beyond vibe, the whole Terry McGinnis, just turning Nightwing into Terry McGinnis, which might be something the fans aren't happy about because Batman Beyond has a huge fan base. So as you can see, DC is just like, Warner Brothers is just like ripping through the DC universe, and they're just like, with reckless abandon. They are like a bull in a china shop, as I've asked about. I asked you when I did my profile on Warner Brothers CEO Kevin Tsujihara, is he just a bull in a china shop? Because he's just, with reckless abandon, just going for the gold. Box office gold, literally, because you're borrowing a lot from here and there from different characters without any regard for why they work in the first place. So we'll see. I mean, this is like a really, really risky strategy, but I think it's getting a lot of buzz. I am excited to see Ben Affleck as Batman, but I feel really bad for Henry Cavill, and I just it worked so well with Hunger Games, where they replaced the entire behind the camera crew, directors, writers, cinematographers, costume designers even. They replaced everyone. And I think and they kept the cast. And that's worked really well for them. I think they're going to really benefit from that change up. And I wish that Warner Brothers would do the same. That's the change I want to see. Bye, Snyder Goyer. You guys, thanks for setting us up. But I think that pretty much anybody could do a much better job than these two guys. I think together, they're just a disaster for the DC Cinematic Universe. And that's my concern. If they were gone, I'd be feeling a lot better about this whole thing. So I'm wondering what you guys think. Do you think this is awesome? Are you excited for them to just bring all these characters in and explore this? Or do you agree that maybe they're borrowing from here and there a little too much and just messing everything up? They're touching everything, but then at the same time, nothing remains untouched. Nothing is sacred. All right, so that's the second story of the day. The third story of the day was a fun story about the White House. Now, the White House, after their Mandela screening, Mandela Long Walk to Freedom, they said, that's it, no more screenings. Take your movies elsewhere. We're not going to be a pawn in your Oscar race. Because apparently ever since Steven Spielberg played Lincoln there, everybody's been running over there. And he's had 42 screen there. He had the Butler screen there. Butler's an obvious choice. It's about the White House and presidents. And Obama is heavily referenced in the film itself. And now here comes Mandela. Now, and also, just before I get into my opinion on this, a funny twist, though, was yesterday it was announced that while no more films will screen at the White House, Obama will be stopping by DreamWorks Animation for a tour to be a guest of Jeffrey Katzenberg's. And that's because I think Jeffrey Katzenberg is such a huge donor to the Obama campaign, like $10 million checks. That's why he's stopping by. But I think it lessens the "that's it, Hollywood" kind of announcement if you're like, well, that's it for you coming to my house. But I'd love to come and visit you with a lovely parting gift of a giant check to my campaign. Although he doesn't have to campaign for anything anymore because I'm not going to be running again, obviously. So I don't know. Maybe he's also excited about How to Train Your Dragon 2. All right, so which I also am going to mention today in just a moment in the viewer question. All right, so I think that I don't think President Obama has to stop seeing movies at the White House. I think it's nice to get that kind of attention for a film. I'm sure he likes being able to meet the filmmakers and, maybe give his stamp of approval to films. But I have to say it, there's an obvious trend that he's only having films that are about prominent black historical characters, or, that's basically what he is having screened at the White House. So I would just say, hey, you know what? I don't think you need to cut back on screening movies. I just think you need to broaden your horizons about what you want to, broaden the scope of what you want to have come and play there. Philomena is a wonderful film, also ties in Washington, D.C. It also has a nice little jab at the Republican Party. Why doesn't he play that there? Philomena sure could use the extra headlines. It's a great movie that's really flying under the radar right now. Worryingly so. I'm very nervous it's not going to get its due come award season. So why doesn't he throw his support behind that film? And I think it would benefit President Obama, who's I think in general been a very nice president. No matter what you might think of his politics, I think what he's stood for has been very nice, and I think he's worked very hard not to seem like he favors any particular race in this country. Not at all like Bill de Blasio, for instance, the new mayor of New York, who heavily plays the race card. So with, there was a lot of controversy over him he's married to an African American, and, obviously has mixed race children, and he really used them a lot in his campaign. You saw them more than you saw Bill de Blasio. And so some people, that was a big issue of debate. I'm not going to get into, where I stand on it, but I just think that, he does play de Blasio is someone who plays the race card. Obama has not, which I think has been really nice. I mean, I think some people have argued he did with Trayvon Martin, stuff like that. The guy's only human. I think, he felt that way because he was a child, and he said any one of us could be Trayvon. What parent wants to get that call? But I would urge him, just like people said, hey, maybe you want to talk about some white people who have been senselessly killed. Maybe I think it would just be nice for him to show multiple films before he leaves the White House, to show that there's no favoritism, and that the Obamas enjoy all movies just like everybody should. All right, so those are the 3 stories of the day. Now for the viewer question, which comes from DarkSlave99. And this says, quick question, Grace. Great, awesome. Do you think the Japanese anime industry should team up with the American animation companies to create more series and original animated films? Japanese anime is very original and on the cutting edge in terms of quality, and I believe that American filmmakers would benefit greatly from a team-up. I agree with you. And I'm glad I can finally answer this question. I don't know if it's been you, DarkSlave99, but I've seen a few people ask it over the last few weeks as we've been discussing animation and adult animation. Now, I want to be clear. I think I've hinted at it, but I feel very strongly that there is a market here in the United States for adult animation. I think The Legend of Korra is showing that. It's very successful. And I think that we need a movie that will make people feel they can take that risk. Because I think the motion capture animation that Robert Zemeckis really championed failed. Robert Zemeckis has even abandoned it. And I think that studios see that and they go, whoa, that animation fell flat on its face. I'm not touching adult animation. But of course, in typical Hollywood fashion, they don't think about why it failed. That it had the horrible, it was too close to the, I forget the term, but it's too close to being realistic. It passes that threshold of realism in animation that makes it become disturbing. So I think that's where they made that mistake. But I think that there's such a strong undercurrent, just like a fandom for the stuff that already exists. And I think that if the right vehicle was there, it could introduce the mainstream to it. And there would be a success. Now, How to Train Your Dragon 2. This is where this comes in. I feel that this movie could be a gateway movie to potential adult animation. Because for the first time, and I hope they go really far with it. They're trying to build mythology. They have a trilogy planned, just like with these, with the Batman movies and stuff like that. So that's really important in all these big blockbusters. But also, How to Train Your Dragon will feature dragon warriors. They're aging up their characters. It's not just, it's kids fighting. They're aging them up. I think for the 3rd film, they'll be fully fledged adults, which will be very exciting. And the poster just came out yesterday for How to Train Your Dragon 2, and it has Hiccup holding his helmet, in a warrior pose with, Toothless behind him, looking adorable to get those family dollars, but still being a tough dragon that he's going to ride into battle. So I think that's very exciting, and I think this could be a good middle ground to show that you can have things like war and weapons and really raise the stakes. I mean, they raised the stakes beautifully in the first film with having Hiccup lose his foot. I thought that was great and brilliant. They didn't shy away from that war has a cost. an emotional and a physical cost. I thought that was very important. So I'm excited to see what they're going to do with the second film, and I feel that if this is successful, and I feel it will be, this will maybe start to inspire other studios to be like, hey, you know what, maybe there's something here. Because, Hollywood's so risk averse that they're going to have to do this slowly. But I hope that, I think How to Train Your Dragon 2 and Legend of Korra are going to start proving that there is this market for adult animation. Because Legend of Korra, while it airs on Nickelodeon, has wonderful fight scenes, very adult concepts, and fight scenes, by the way, that are as good as anything you would see in a live-action adult film. And sometimes better. So, as for the team-ups that you've suggested, Dark Slave 99, I don't know if that would ever happen. I don't know if creatively people would be able to share control like that. I think what's going to have to happen is you're going to have to have a distribution deal with an anime studio. I even shy away from that because Disney distributes Hayao Miyazaki's films here, and they don't do particularly well. I don't think Disney really advertises them very well, and the sensibility is so different. I think the style of animation is very important. I think the quality is important, but they're going to have Western elements of storytelling. They're going to have to do a mix like Legend of Korra does if they want to see these films succeed stateside. So I think what really needs to happen is you need to have maybe an anime director from Japan come over to the United States and work with the animation house here, and that's where you might find some success. Or someone has to make a Western-style animated film out of Japan, export it here, and watch it blow up at the box office, and then that will inspire Hollywood studios to follow suit. But I think you're not just dealing with a style or a quality issue here, but a storytelling issue to some degree as well. I think Eastern storytelling still isn't going to click with your mainstream audience unless it has some strong Western influences. So that's my answer to your question. Thank you, Dark Slave 99, for asking it. I hope everyone writes down below what they think of today's 3 stories as well as the viewer question, and let me know what you'd like to see covered on Monday and any questions you might have. Thanks for watching. Bye.